My name is Dr. Rupa Marya. I am a professor of medicine at UCSF and one of the members of the Do No Harm Coalition. And I'm here to support a free Palestine.
And maybe you can talk about this movement, because I know at General Hospital there was a rally there, but it seems this movement is broadened.
Yes, and speaking specifically from the healthcare perspective, it has been shocking to us to see how the wholesale destruction of the healthcare system in Gaza has been a part of Israel's tactic of maximizing human suffering for the people of Gaza. Since November, when 100 Israeli doctors signed a letter calling for the bombing of all the hospitals, and then our own editor-in-chief of the Journal of the American Medical Association is a UCSF professor, Kirsten Bibbins-Domingo. She published in the JAMA an article by so-called ethicist Wainia, which was looking at the role of healthcare professionals in the Middle East conflict. And in that article, he provided a moral justification or opening of ambiguity that, maybe there are some times where it's okay to bomb hospitals. And categorically, the answer to that is from an international humanitarian law perspective and from the aspect of ourselves as physicians and people who have taken a sacred oath to do no harm, to take care of all people, to take care of health. It has been just so disheartening and demoralizing to be in a profession where so many of our colleagues are not standing up and standing out and saying, stop this genocide, stop bombing hospitals, stop, restricting humanitarian aid coming in. So right now, as we're witnessing Israel starve the people of Gaza, which has disproportionately impacted the health and well-being of children, it is truly a health horror show for us. For the first, between October 16th and through the end of November, I was in daily contact with physician Dr. Hassan Abu Sitta, who is a surgeon working in Al-Shifa and other hospitals, and he was texting me every morning and voice messages on WhatsApp, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, for me to type up what was happening as he was describing an unfolding catastrophe as Israel kept bombing different hospitals. And all of the things that I was typing up, from saying we're now having to perform amputations with minimal anesthetic, we don't have the antibiotics, we're using vinegar on these wounds, all these, you can't even believe that these things are happening. No one would publish it. The British Medical Journal that commissioned an article for me on the decolonization of nature, and the work that I do around the health impacts of colonialism, I asked, can I just share these words? And I sent them 9 different versions that Hassan and I rewrote, and they just refused to publish it. Same with the LA Times, who received the same, we tried to change it for the lay press. And so it's been very hard to share the stories of what has been happening there from the healthcare system. And so we have been organizing the Do No Harm Coalition, Healthcare Workers for Palestine, Bay Area, a bunch of different people in this region, to push for unrestricted medical aid, to push for a ceasefire, to push for an acknowledgement of the genocide that's happening and stopping that violence, and for a free Palestine, to understand that we cannot have health under settler colonial logic. Even here in California, our California Native people living an hour north of here in the Hopland.
This was built on Native land.
Yes, we're in here in, the territory of Huchin. This is Ohlone territory. Up there is the Hopland Band of Pomo. They don't have running water. It's 2024. So many people up there don't even have access to running water. So the legacies and impacts of settler colonialism last for hundreds of years until they're corrected. And this is a time of that correction. And so from a health perspective, if we want health of the planet and health of the people, we have to start moving the structures that are causing the harm. And what we're seeing right now with the U.S. sending more arms, more weapons to Israel, is ongoing harm of people who want to live in freedom and with equal rights in their own homeland. And so that's what we are here to advocate for, is that our institutions actually stop participating in that. So here in the UC system, especially UCSF, we have the Diller Foundation, The Diller Foundation is a major donor to UCSF. They've donated $1.1 billion. The Diller Foundation was also found to have earmarked money in 2018, made a mistake by putting in their memo, $100K for the Canary Mission. The Canary Mission is a project that supports Israel to spy on and discredit and destroy the careers of U.S. academics who are critical of Israel. And so these connections of how people in our own institutions become silenced, and at UCSF we've seen horrific acts of repression and silencing.
What kind of acts?
We've seen pediatrics residents who share a slide about the children who are being killed in Gaza, like shamed throughout the department by their department chair the next day. Like, that should never have been mentioned, that children are dying, at the hands of U.S. weapons.
If they were Ukrainians, it would be different.
Well, yeah, we were all okay to talk about Ukraine. We were even okay to talk about Black Lives Mattering. But I've never received the kind of vituperative hate and blowback from an institution as I have since I've said, stop bombing hospitals. What is this ideology of this ideology where it's okay to go and take another person's land and subject them to apartheid reality. So this exposes these intricate relationships of financial support and how our rights to speak and to stand for the health of all people is actually impeded by the very structures of our institutions. And so how do we liberate that? How do we liberate resources so we can actually advance health for all? What's been shocking to me is to see how many doctors who say they're there for health equity and health equity experts and anti-racist experts will not speak out about Palestine, will not speak out about the bombing of hospitals in Gaza. And they'll say it's too controversial and it's, you can't talk about that. Why can't we talk about that? Well, the department chair is a Zionist. The department chair supports Israel. This person, I don't want to offend them. There's both sides. For me, I don't see both sides to genocide. I don't see both sides to apartheid. I see dynamics of resistance, dynamics of coloniality, and dynamics where we are preventing whole people from being healthy. And so my work as a physician and a scholar of colonialism and health, that's what I do, is to look at how can we start to move structures. I call it deep medicine. How can we make medicine work for everybody? And that requires structures of change. And what we're seeing here today at this encampment and the encampments all over the country now is we're seeing these students engage in deep medicine. They are looking at how do we change the structures, the flow of resources, so that we can start to liberate the possibility of people being sovereign in their own homelands, so that here, this land that we're standing on, how does this land go back to Ohlone people? How do we uplift the plight of California Native people recovering from genocide that's happened here over hundreds of years? It's an ongoing erasure, ongoing process. And when we start to participate in that, we create new possibilities.
I'm Yazin Keshlan.
And what's going on here at UC Berkeley? We're here, it's a beautiful day, and looks like there's some action by students here and others.
Yeah, it's a nice day. This is the fourth day of the Free Palestine encampment. We're out here with a few clearly stated demands. We're out here with a great and growing and diverse group of students and alumni and community members and families and their kids. So we can go into the demands if you like. But yeah, it's getting a little tricky because this is a campus. Campus is about to close for the summer, so we're thinking about how to continue.
But the university regents, apparently a lot of them get money from Israel, invest in Israel. That's one of your demands, I understand, that the university divest. They have billions of dollars in pension funds.
Correct, yeah. One of the first demand is kind of the most urgent one, where we're requesting the university to end its silence on not calling for a ceasefire. That's kind of like the first step that a lot of world leaders around the world have been calling for. It's not like outrageous at all.
The schools in Gaza have been attacked, bombed. I mean, there's been no protest by university.
Yeah, you know more than I do, it seems. The second one is what you were bringing up, boycott, divestment. So that's like institutional and financial. Like you mentioned, the financial ties are deep because, science and industry are intertwined in these two countries, but some of these are deeply intertwined with the systems that promote apartheid, imperialism, racism. It's built in the laws, and so the demand is quite simple. Identify those funds. We have a team that's working on this systematically to kind of help the university make progress on this front. And then divestment on the institutional level from partnerships that don't meet the students' values. It's quite simple. That's the second demand. And the third one finally is almost more selfish, just on the local front within the university. Something about the way the universities had this double standard in terms of what's allowed to be said and what's not. When I first joined the University of Illinois as an undergrad, I never met this professor who was denied tenure, because there was another firing incident. Denied tenure when I first joined, because he was writing about the rights of Native Americans. And if you read Arabic poetry, you'll see that Arabs tend to draw a lot of parallels between the experience of the Native Americans here and the Palestinians. But obviously there's a whole debate around who's native to that land, and that's what people just can't seem to get over. And so the idea there is to stop such double standards by the university. A month ago as well, as another example, a professor here at the Theological Seminary was fired for vague reasons, but his sentiments are known. And so it doesn't take a genius to draw connections as to why he was fired. So just such things, they're pretty embarrassing. You know, we're asking for such things to stop. It's embarrassing for our university to be doing that. So upholding free speech, essentially.
And the university obviously is also engaged in the military-industrial complex. Lawrence Livermore Laboratory in the United States is a major supplier of weapons, military equipment. Is that an issue for students here?
For sure. You know, you can think of the arms industry as like a necessary evil. We need arms to ensure security at different levels, but when arms are being so clearly tied with even a plausible quote-unquote genocide, as it was agreed described by the International Criminal Court, or National Court of Justice, in The Hague. You know, such things are obvious. You know, just stop doing that. Like you don't need advanced degrees to reach a conclusion like that. But on that front as well, where do you start, right? Yeah, I think the answers to that are pretty obvious.
And how long are you going to be here at this encampment?
As long as it takes for our demands to be met, those three demands. It gets a little tricky as the academic semester is approaching an end. But of course, the timeline of war doesn't know the academic timeline. Yeah. I'm not Palestinian. I'm from the region. Kind of before they were carved up into countries. My folks are from Syria, and so it's painful. But you should recall that like this group is very diverse, and so it's not like based on who you are standing for these things. You'll find all walks of life on this camp.
Are there unions involved in supporting this?
The union made a statement, I think, calling for a ceasefire, but not formally, I believe, in terms of like. I actually don't know. There's this divestment coalition. I'm not totally aware if the union is on that. It's a whole range of groups.
What can people do to support this encampment?
I always like to remind people, like think, what would you do if you're in a position of power? Would you resign like some people did at the Google headquarters, although some of them were fired as well? Would you disrupt conferences like some people did at this tech conference in New York? Would you resign like the person who didn't want to sign off on some weapons deals or just weapons deals to Israel? 2 to 3 months ago at the State Department, they found that the scrutiny with which weapons deals were examined was different in this Israeli case. So what would you do? Like, I like to ask people to put themselves in the shoes of people who can make a change. A lot of people feel paralyzed, but we shouldn't. And yeah, maybe like ending on a positive note, the negotiations over there seem to be taking a positive turn today, where what's proposed by the Israeli side seems likely to be taken up by Hamas leaders. What comes next? That's not something people think that we have ideas about what comes after ceasefire. Like, that's up to the people on the ground to get into the nitty-gritty about how to govern. But right now, it's racist, imperialist, and apartheid. Yeah, so just things to think about. People should keep this on their minds. It's kind of one conflict that resembles a lot of other conflicts that kind of grabs people's attention this way, in a way that seems unresolvable. But I'm personally optimistic, despite the gloom.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much.